Gentlemen, you'll have about 30 seconds to respond to this final question. I wish I could give you more time, but we're out of our allotted time. This comes also from a veteran, a very different veteran, who wants to know, with Congress actively discussing, debating, and disagreeing on the subject of don't ask, don't tell as a means of keeping gay men and women in or out of the American military services, what is your position on the policy of don't ask, don't tell, and gay men and women serving in the United States military? Mr. Lee, you have the first 30-second opportunity.
I have the benefit of having consulted with a panel of military advisors that my campaign has assembled. This list includes retired military officers, generals, colonels, and so forth. I've discussed this issue with them, and they've informed me that don't ask, don't tell works well. It's easy to implement. It is necessary to maintain the morale of our troops, and it should be maintained. I'm following that recommendation, and I would continue to support that policy.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Bradley, it's your opportunity.
I believe that unit cohesiveness is the prime directive in terms of what we do with the military. The military fight and die for each other. If you dissolve that with such an intrusive thing as homosexuals serving beside others that were not of the same persuasion, we can't have our troops crawling all over each other's sleeping bags at night trying to figure out what they're going to do. This is something that we must not allow to go forward. We must keep unit cohesiveness so that we can have our units fight most effectively. I oppose removing the policy.
Sam Granato, your 30-second opportunity.
We have gay men and women serving proudly and risking their lives in the military. I think it's an insult to them. I think that needs to go away. And I would support the elimination of don't ask, don't tell. It needs to be removed. People that are fighting side by side know who's gay, who's not gay, and they know that they count on each other on a daily basis.
Gentlemen, thank you. We've moved through our allotted time and have just enough time for a final thought from each of our candidates. Prior to airtime, it was determined that the first 1-minute opportunity would go to the Democratic candidate, Sam Granato. 1 minute.
Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for the opportunity I've had to get some of my views across. I am Sam Granato, as I said. I'm mainstream. I'm moderate Utah. I've traveled this state for a year and a half. I've met people on both sides of the aisle. There is common ground between us. It doesn't matter if I have a D behind my name or an R. What I have learned, it's the U behind my name for Utah. Once I get to Washington, I'm not going to be looking at what assignments I'm given, but what I can do for my state at home. I will be spending time here, bringing ideas back, especially to rural Utah. It is about jobs. It's about the economy. It's getting us back on our feet. And the one thing we need is optimism. You know, there's a party of no. I'm going to bring some optimism in because we need, again, I've said this several times tonight, we need to work together to get this job done. Thank you.
Mr. Granato, our next summation from the Republican candidate, Mike Lee. Mr. Lee.
It's a pleasure to be with you this evening, and I thank each of you for coming and for your good and thought-provoking questions. We do live in a time of great conflict. And we have to remember at the same time, we also live in a time where we have good reason to be optimistic. I agree with what Ronald Reagan said about 25 years ago when he prophetically declared that it's morning in America again. And indeed it is, yet again. Americans throughout the state of Utah and across America are reclaiming their right to constitutionally limited government, with the understanding that it's this approach to government, limiting and rolling back what the federal government does and how much of our money it spends before those who are even going to be able to vote one day and going to have to pay off existing debts of the federal government before they're even born. We have to focus on limiting the size, scope, reach, and power of the federal government. As we do that, we'll create jobs and create a more prosperous America for tomorrow.
And our final word tonight from the Constitution Party candidate, Scott Bradley. Mr. Bradley.
I've spent my life trying to bring forth the principles of freedom that this nation was founded upon. They are timeless. They're not based upon technology or anything like that. They're based upon human nature. The national government was created to fulfill certain specific critical issues that the national government needed to provide in order for us to be a nation. We have strayed far from that. And this nation has suffered as we have abandoned those timeless principles. And it would be my effort as a United States Senator to use all of the influence I could possibly bring to bear to help bring this nation together again under those principles. States would take their new position that they held formerly. Individuals would be responsible for their own actions. Choice and accountability truly is an American principle. So I hope you'll give consideration to the fact that we need to return the national government to the bounds and scope that it was designed to be, so that we as a nation and individuals can enjoy the freedom that God ordained for us to have. Thank you for being here. Thank you for those that are listening.
Thank you, gentlemen. A reminder, the obvious reminder, the general election will be held the first Tuesday in November nationwide. So check with your local county clerk for registration and voting locations. And for now, thanks for joining us here at KUED.